has tears in his eyes. Rasulullah can't take the tears of Hussein. He grabs him, he cuddles him, he takes him into his arms, he hugs him. In the tradition it says he puts him on his chest and he begins to cry. Jibreel comes. He says, Ya Rasulullah, don't you know what's going to happen to your son? He's going to be massacred on the plains of Karbala. Imagine that. Ahlul Bayt know this. In another tradition it says, can you hear this tradition? This one breaks my heart. Why it breaks my heart? Look at it, the way that it goes. So Sayyid al-Shuhada comes in. Zahra standing there. Wahi has just come down. Jibreel has said, your son will be killed. Zahra looks up. She looks towards Sayyid al-Shuhada. She says, if you're going to present your life, with tears in her eyes, she looks towards her father then and she says, Father, tell me, are you going to be there to cry over my son? Mother's heart, right? First thing that goes into her heart, is there going to be anyone to cry over my son? Rasulullah says, no, I'm not going to be there to cry over your son. She looks towards Abul Hassan. She says, Ya Abul Hassan, tell me, will you cry over our son? Are you going to be there? He says, no, I'm not going to be there. Looks towards Imam Hassan. Says, are you going to be there? Says, no. At that moment, she says, Father, am I going to be there? Says, no. Says, who's going to cry over my son then? When there's no one to cry over him. Who's going to beat their chest over my son? Where there's no one to beat their chest over him. Who's going to remember our son? Rasulullah replies, says, Allah will create a nation who will cry for your son until the day of judgment. Now understand your status. You are that dua. You are the dua of Rasulullah. When he says Allah will create that nation, you're that nation. You're that nation they were looking towards. Whoever you are, however you are. Look back and see, Sheikh Abbas al-Qummi has a tradition. In that tradition it says if a person recites anything for the sake of Sayyid al-Shuhada, if 40 people cry, Jannah becomes obligatory. He says no, not 40, 30. He says no, not 30, 20. He says even if a couplet, and he continues to go and he says, even if one person has a tear in their eyes, Jannah becomes wajib upon them. The criteria is this though, arif and bihaqih, that they understand the status of what Sayyid al-Shuhada is. That's for us. That's that power that we've been given. Understand therefore, so come back to this again, understand your status. Know who you are. Know what you are. Sacrifices that have been made, they've been made so that we are alive today. The most difficult moment to say the Shuhada was what? Imagine standing there as a child, right? When Rasulullah says to him, son, what are you willing to give? Are you willing to sacrifice your life for the sake of this message? He says, yes. Grandfather, I'm willing to sacrifice my life. Are you willing to sacrifice the life of your brother? Yes, grandfather, I'm willing to sacrifice. Are you willing to sacrifice the arms of Abbas? Yes, grandfather, I'm willing to sacrifice that. Are you willing to sacrifice the chest of your son? Yes, I'm willing to sacrifice that. What about the neck of your son? Yes, I'm willing to sacrifice that. There's one place though that history says that comes, even say the Shuhada stops. You know what that place is? When he turns around and he says that, are you willing to sacrifice the hijab of your sister Zainab? And at that moment you find that Imam looks quiet. He says, in my lifetime,